Chapter 1. The Summit of Polite Threats ****. The Order called it a peace summit. Humans called it Tuesday. The Citadel of Harmony hung above a dying red dwarf, its light staining the marble corridors with a rust-colored hue. Delegates from 22 civilizations gathered inside the Hall of Accord. A chamber shaped like a cathedral and an interrogation room had a confused child. At the center stood a circular table large enough to host a small war. Captain Elena Reyes adjusted her collar, offering the kind of smile humans used when about to say something diplomatic or dangerous. Her aide, Lieutenant Mason Carter, stood beside her, sipping coffee that looked like melted asphalt. The VRETH delegation hissed softly at the smell. "How do your species consume that toxic liquid?" Mason shrugged. "Same way you digest ammonia for breakfast. We built up trauma tolerance over time." The Dravik enforcer beside them grunted, a low, vibrating sound that shook the air. Humans and their jokes. Always hiding fear behind noise. Reyes' smile didn't flicker. "You're half right. But it's not fear we're hiding." A subtle silence followed, the kind that lingered when people realized they might not understand what game they were playing. At the head of the table, High Arbiter Xath raised his crystalline appendage. "Let us begin. The matter of the Human Containment Treaty is first on today's agenda." The words human and containment rarely appeared in the same sentence without consequences. The session started like any bureaucratic nightmare. Long speeches, longer pauses, and the faint hum of translation devices turning diplomacy into background noise. Representatives argued over trade zones, mining rights, and whether humans should be limited to non-strategic expansion zones. Reyes listened in polite stillness, fingers tapping the table once every 10 seconds, a rhythm of patience. Mason leaned toward her, whispering, "Are we supposed to nod, or is that considered aggression here?" "Just look thoughtful," she murmured. "Pretend you're listening to jazz." A VRETH speaker rose, wings clattering. "Humans possess volatile instincts. Unchecked emotion led to multiple wars even within their own species. Such unpredictability endangers peace. The Order recommends stricter oversight." Another delegate, a Soulkin philosopher floating inside a tank of shimmering gas, added, "Containment is not punishment, but mercy. The human condition is combustible." Reyes clasped her hands. "May I respond?" Permission was granted, though several delegates already looked exasperated, the universal reaction to a human about to speak. "First," she began, "thank you for your concern. We appreciate being discussed like a rabid pet in a neighbor's complaint meeting." A few murmurs rippled across the chamber. "Second, humans don't deny our volatility. We just learn to aim it. You call it rage. We call it innovation under pressure." Mason muttered, "And caffeine." Reyes continued, tone smooth, almost amused. "Containment only works if the cage is big enough for what's inside. History shows cages don't last long." The VRETH leader twitched. "Is that a threat?" "Of course not," Reyes said pleasantly. "That was history. You can verify it in our archives, preferably before trying to write a new one." Mason hid a grin behind his cup. The sound of his slurp echoed through the hall, breaking the tension like a pin to glass. Then, without warning, the lights flickered. A brief surge, a hum, and then darkness swallowed the chamber. For a heartbeat, only the sound of alien breathing filled the air, until the emergency lighting snapped on, painting every face in blood-red glow. "Apologies," Reyes said. "Our ship's reactor is nearby. Must have been running diagnostics." A technician confirmed the interference came from a human vessel stationed in orbit. The delegates murmured disapproval. Xath's voice rattled the air. "Captain Reyes, please ensure your technology does not interrupt Order proceedings." "Of course, Arbiter." "It won't happen again," she replied, voice light as silk. "Unless the diagnostics reveal something interesting." When the lights stabilized, Xath resumed. "The Order must consider the risk of human escalation. We have seen their wars. We have seen their destruction." Reyes' expression softened, almost sympathetic. "Yes, And we've seen yours. The difference is, she paused, ours end faster. That earned several hostile glares. The Dravik enforcer rumbled low in his chest. You think yourselves dangerous, small one? Mason leaned back. Dangerous? Nah. Just efficient. The Soulkin philosopher floated closer, voice melodic. Efficiency without compassion breeds monsters. Reyes tilted her head. And compassion without caution breeds victims. Pick your poison. The chamber stilled again. The words hung heavier than any weapon. After hours of debate, the Order drafted an updated treaty, layers of restrictions and surveillance wrapped in bureaucratic politeness. When presented, Reyes smiled faintly and signed without hesitation. Mason frowned. That's it? We're agreeing to this. Officially, she murmured. Unofficially, we're agreeing to appear agreeable. He chuckled under his breath. So, the usual. As they exited the chamber, alien envoys whispered among themselves, relieved the emotional humans had been pacified. They didn't notice the faint pulse of light flickering on Reyes' wristband, a coded transmission spreading quietly through the human network. Outside, the star bled dimly against the black horizon. Ships floated like silent knives around the citadel. Think they bought it? Mason asked. Reyes gazed at the dying light. They always do. They mistake calm for surrender. It's our favorite disguise. Mason's grin returned. So, containment, huh? She laughed softly. Let them build their cages. They'll find the locks on our side. Back in the council hall, the Soulkin philosopher whispered to the Viareth commander, there is something different about them. They are primitive, the insectoid replied. Loud, irrational, impulsive. Yet calm, the Soulkin mused. Calm, as though waiting for something. The philosopher's words went unnoticed amid the rising chatter. Outside the station, the human ship's thrusters ignited briefly, a flash that vanished into the void. Inside the diplomatic quarters, Reyes poured another cup of coffee, steam curling like a ghost. Mason handed her a datapad filled with Order surveillance logs. They're watching every colony, he said. Even Luna's farms. Good, Reyes said, eyes distant. They'll be looking in the wrong direction. Mason leaned against the wall, smirking. You ever worry they'll catch on? Reyes took a slow sip. I worry they won't. I like a challenge. The console beside her blinked again. Short, then long, then 3 pulses. Signal acknowledged. All units in position. Hours later, as the Order adjourned, the Arbiter noted an anomaly in the Citadel's data traffic. A low-frequency pattern undetectable to most systems. It looked like background radiation. Meaningless static. He dismissed it. He didn't notice the message hidden inside it. Phase 1 ready. Far below, in the quiet dark of human-controlled space, fleets stirred. Engines hummed to life. Coordinates aligned. Reyes looked out the viewport, her reflection faint against the stars. Containment, she whispered. Such a funny word. Mason raised his cup. To peace. She clinked hers against his. To patience. Chapter 2. The Taste of Containment ****. The next morning, the Citadel glowed in its usual artificial calm, white walls, recycled air, and the faint hum of systems pretending nothing dangerous ever happened inside them. Captain Elena Reyes entered the diplomatic lounge wearing a smile that could have passed for peace or prelude. Her aide, Lieutenant Mason Carter, was already there, elbows on the table, wrestling with an alien device shaped like an overconfident teapot. Careful, she said. Last time you touched one of those, we almost started a trade war. Mason squinted at it. I was trying to make coffee, not economic history. The device hissed, sprayed violet vapor, and went silent. Mason sighed. Great. Another casualty of diplomacy. Reyes chuckled and poured her own brew from a metal flask. That's why we bring our own. Across the lounge, alien diplomats observed the humans with a mix of fascination and discomfort. Even after a century of interstellar relations, humanity remained an enigma, simultaneously polite and unsettling, like a cat that smiled after knocking over a vase. High Arbiter Xath summoned them to the main chamber for an informal discussion. That phrase, in Order language, usually meant a trap dressed in courtesy. The council table shimmered to life with holographic projections of human colonies scattered across known space. Xath's crystalline body refracted the light into sharp patterns across the walls. "The Order," he began, "has reviewed last night's incident. The energy disruption from your ship has caused concern. Some believe it reflects instability." Reyes folded her hands. "Our ship experienced a diagnostic malfunction. Nothing more." "Yet," Xath replied slowly, "humans have a history of turning malfunctions into declarations of war." Mason muttered, "That was one time." Reyes shot him a look that could peel paint. "What my lieutenant means," she said smoothly, "is that humans learn from accidents. We rarely repeat them." A Viereth envoy clicked its mandibles. "Rarely? You burned your own atmosphere twice in a millennium." "3 times," Mason corrected cheerfully. "We got better at cleanup." Laughter rippled through a few younger aliens, quickly silenced by their superiors. The air carried that faint, brittle tension that only humans seemed comfortable sitting in. The Soulkin philosopher drifted forward, voice echoing like wind in a canyon. "You hide flame beneath jest. Why?" Reyes' tone softened. "Because truth burns slower when you wrap it in humor. And because it makes our enemies underestimate the fire." That earned silence. Even Xath hesitated before continuing. "Human expansion continues beyond the agreed perimeter. The Order must enforce boundaries." "Of course," Reyes said lightly. "We respect boundaries. We just test their flexibility." Her words landed like a handshake with hidden claws. After the meeting, Reyes and Mason stepped out onto the observation deck overlooking the Citadel's vast hull. The stars outside shimmered like ice dust. "So," Mason said, "we're being contained again." Reyes sipped her coffee. "They've convinced themselves that paperwork can hold a species that domesticated fire for fun." "Should we tell them about the fleet movements?" "No," she said. "Not yet. Let them think we're still house-trained." Mason smirked. "You enjoy this way too much." She didn't deny it. Meanwhile, in the council's secure chamber, alien delegates whispered in overlapping languages. The Dravik commander growled, "Their restraint is unnatural. They should snarl. They smile instead." Xath's crystal facets dimmed. "Perhaps they believe the Order weak." The Soulkin philosopher swirled inside its fluid tank. "Or perhaps they remember something we have forgotten: how to wait." None of them noticed the faint network hum beneath their systems, the invisible pulse echoing between data lines, human-coded frequencies cloaked as background noise. Every word spoken inside the Citadel was already being archived aboard the dauntless Reyes ship. Hours later, Reyes hosted an interspecies tea session, a concept so absurd the Order permitted it out of curiosity. The room smelled of a dozen brews, herbal, metallic, and one that reeked like burnt tires. Humans called it coffee. "Try it," Mason urged, offering a mug to the Viereth diplomat. "Just a sip." The insectoid eyed it warily. "It smells aggressive." "Exactly," Mason said. "That's the flavor of progress." The alien took a hesitant sip, twitched violently, and set the cup down. "It feels like electricity in my veins." "That's the point," Reyes said, smiling. "Keeps us from overthinking peace." The laughter that followed sounded nervous, but laughter nonetheless. Reyes used the distraction to activate her wristband, syncing with the Citadel's comm array for translation enhancement. In truth, she was transmitting new command keys to human fleet nodes hidden across neutral space. Later, as the lounge emptied, Mason leaned closer. "Operation Serenity's been announced," he said quietly. "They're deploying drones to our colonies under the name of protection." "Pacification drones," Reyes corrected. "And we're letting them." He frowned. "That's risky. That's bait." Her voice had that soft, dangerous calm again, the kind she used when playing chess with 5 moves already made. She looked out the viewport. The red dwarf below flickered, light bleeding through thin clouds of cosmic dust. "Do you know what happens when you try to cage fire, Mason?" He smirked. "You get smoke. You get clever fire." By evening, Order news channels broadcast the treaty renewal as a triumph of diplomacy. The headlines praised human cooperation and restored confidence. Inside the Citadel, Reyes and Mason watched the reports with amused detachment. Mason leaned back. "We're officially stable and compliant." "On paper," she said. "That's all they read." He raised an eyebrow. "So what's next?" "Next," Reyes said, "they send their drones. Then we let them watch as their control systems start taking orders from us." Mason grinned. "You already hacked them, didn't you?" "Not me," she said, sipping her drink. "Humanity. I just pressed send." Elsewhere in the galaxy, the first wave of Serenity drones entered human airspace, broadcasting messages of peace and compliance. Colony governors greeted them politely. Civilians waved from city domes. Cameras captured smiles. Behind every smile, coded transmissions pulsed through the planetary network, encrypted, invisible, synchronized. Every drone believed it was transmitting data to the Order. In reality, it was feeding coordinates to human fleet command. Back in the Citadel, the Soulkin philosopher drifted alone, deep in contemplation. "They do not resist," it murmured. "They adapt, as rivers carve mountains." The VA Reth commander scoffed. "You sound impressed." "I am afraid," the philosopher whispered. "They learned our rules faster than we wrote them." Near midnight, Reyes stood alone at the viewport again, watching the dying star's red light crawl across the hull. Mason joined her, holding 2 mugs. "You think they'll ever stop underestimating us?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Underestimation is their comfort blanket. We'd be cruel to take it away." He handed her the mug. "To cruelty then?" "No," she said softly. "To courtesy." They clinked cups. Chapter 3. The Breach ****. The alarm came at dawn, a deep, mechanical thrum that rattled the Citadel's halls. Red lights bled through the glass corridors. Delegates spilled from their quarters, chittering, clicking, and shouting across dozens of dialects. Captain Elena Reyes arrived at the command gallery already calm, coffee in hand. Lieutenant Mason Carter followed, half awake, still buttoning his jacket. "What did we break this time?" he asked. "Something important," Reyes said, eyes narrowing at the holographic display. A containment vessel orbiting the human colony of Vega 9 had exploded. Not malfunctioned, detonated. The Order's network flooded with panic signals. The official report labeled it Human Instability Incident. The footage, however, told a different story. On screen, a fleet of Order security drones surrounded a mining facility. Humans inside moved with eerie precision. No chaos, no screaming, just silent coordination. Then, one drone turned its weapons on the others. A chain reaction followed. Within minutes, the entire detachment vaporized. No human casualties. No survivors among the drones. Mason whistled. "Well, that's one way to say, good morning." Reyes didn't answer. Her gaze was fixed on the timestamp in the corner. This wasn't random. It synchronized with the Serenity drone launch. "You think it's us?" "I know it is." She turned toward the window. Beyond it, the Citadel glowed like a fragile jewel. "And now they'll come for answers." The council convened within the hour. The chamber vibrated with agitation. "Humans have violated the treaty," the VA Reth commander hissed, antennae quivering. "Your colonies destroyed Order property." Reyes stood in the center of the uproar, posture steady, voice even. "With respect, Commander, your drones attacked first." "Impossible," he spat. "They were programmed for peacekeeping." Mason muttered, "Guess they had a bad day." The Dravik enforcer slammed a clawed hand against the table. "This is rebellion." Rhea's tone didn't rise. Rebellion implies consent to your authority. We never agreed to obedience. We agreed to coexistence. The chamber went silent. The Soulkin philosopher's voice broke the quiet, melodic, and cold. Captain Reyes, if humanity is innocent, why does your fleet move closer to order sectors? She didn't blink. Evacuation. We're protecting our civilians. Xath's crystalline form pulsed with sharp light. Evacuation with weapons armed? Reyes smiled faintly. Habit. Outside the citadel, human ships were indeed moving, elegant, understated vessels forming invisible lines across the void. Officially, they were performing patrol rotations. Unofficially, they were forming a net. The Order's intelligence division tried to intercept human transmissions. They found nothing, just laughter, music, fragments of poetry, meaningless chatter. Mason had ensured the encryption was buried under chaos. Noise is the best camouflage, he'd said once. Nobody looks for danger inside a joke. Hours later, Reyes sat alone in the ambassador's chamber, lights dimmed. A voice crackled through her wristband. Admiral Voss, commander of the Terran fleet. Containment vessel down. Media controlled. All colonies synchronized. Response? She asked. The Order's assembling a tribunal. They want your presence. Perfect, she said. Let them summon their predator to court. Voss chuckled. You sound like you're enjoying this. Diplomacy is just war with better lighting, she said, and ended the call. By evening, the hearing began. Cameras hovered above, broadcasting to the entire alliance. Every species tuned in, not to watch justice, but to witness whether humanity would kneel or bite. Xath presided. Captain Reyes of Terra, do you admit responsibility for the destruction of the containment fleet? No, she said. I acknowledge participation. A murmur spread. Xath's voice hardened. You confess to aggression? Reyes tilted her head slightly. Aggression is such a flexible word. If a caged animal breaks its bars, is it violent or awake? Mason whispered, You're really not helping the defense case. I'm not defending, she murmured. I'm clarifying. The VA Reth commander rose. You humans play with semantics while spilling blood. Your kind is an infection. Careful, Mason said, his voice deceptively light. We get offended when people talk about viruses. We tend to start vaccinating. The alien recoiled, unsure if it was a joke. Reyes turned to the assembly. You fear us because you don't understand restraint. You think calm means weakness. It doesn't. It's containment, and we invented it. Her tone was measured, each word landing like glass on marble. Xath leaned forward. Captain, are you threatening the Order? I'm reminding it, she replied. History doesn't repeat itself. Humans do. In the command deck above the chamber, alarms began to flicker again. The Citadel's outer sensors detected unauthorized signal spikes, human signatures layered under order frequencies. Interference in communications grid, a technician reported. Identify source, the officer ordered. I can't. It's everywhere. Within seconds, screens began looping with human messages. Not demands. Not threats. Just one repeating phrase. Containment breached. The council erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted, systems failed, the Citadel's defense grid locked itself down. Reyes stood unmoving amid the noise. You asked if humanity could be contained, she said quietly. You just got your answer. Xath glared. You will disable your transmissions immediately. I would, she said, if they still belong to me. But right now, the Order's own network is making the call. Mason turned to her. Phase 3. Not yet, she replied. Let them sweat first. As emergency teams scrambled, the Soulkin philosopher floated closer, glowing faintly blue. You planned this, it whispered. From the beginning. Reyes regarded it calmly. No. We prepared. there's a difference. The philosopher's light dimmed. We thought your kind sought peace. We do, she said softly. But peace doesn't mean harmless. Outside, across the galaxy, Order fleets received contradictory orders. Stand down, attack, withdraw, protect. Systems jammed, AI units looped commands, and supply routes rerouted toward human sectors without authorization. The chaos spread faster than any weapon. Mason watched the live feeds. They're eating their own systems. Exactly, Reyes said. Why waste bullets when you can let panic do the work? He gave a low whistle. You terrify me sometimes. That's healthy, she said. Keeps you alert. Within an hour, the Citadel's core communication grid was under human control. The Order didn't yet understand how. Their codes hadn't been stolen, they'd been anticipated. The humans hadn't broken in, they'd been waiting inside the walls. Reyes addressed the Chamber one last time. You can still choose peace, she said. But from now on, it'll be under new management. Xath's body flared with violent light. This is treason. No, Reyes answered. This is symmetry. As God surrounded her, Mason stepped forward. You might want to lower those weapons, he said mildly. They're linked to our grid now. Xath hesitated, sensors flickering. Reyes smiled. Containment. Arbiter. You believed you built the cage. You never noticed who designed the lock. Chapter 4. The Hour of Reckoning. The Citadel hung in silence, stripped of authority. Where the Order once commanded fleets, only static now answered. The Grand Chamber, once a monument to bureaucracy, looked smaller beneath the glow of human insignias pulsing across every surface. Captain Elena Reyes stood at the center, the quiet gravity of a woman who had just changed history without raising her voice. Lieutenant Mason Carter leaned against a console nearby, spinning a stylus between his fingers as if this were just another late shift back on Earth. Status? She asked. Every network node's ours, Mason replied. They're still trying to reboot, but the system keeps rejecting their commands. Like it knows who it prefers listening to now. Reyes nodded. Good. Keep it that way. Down below, Order delegates huddled in disbelief. The Vireth commander hissed at her. You hijacked the galaxy's most secure network. How? With practice, Reyes said. You call it infiltration. We call it troubleshooting. You've doomed yourselves, the Dravok roared. Every world will turn on you. Reyes looked at him with calm sympathy. You already did. This is just the receipt. A projection came alive in the center of the chamber. Admiral Voss from orbit, face illuminated by shifting data feeds. Transmission complete, he reported. Phase 4 is active. The drones have reversed command. The Order's fleets are standing down, or fighting themselves. A murmur of disbelief rippled through the alien ranks. The Solkin philosopher floated closer, voice trembling like wind through hollow glass. You rewrote their obedience codes. Not rewrote, Reyes said. Unlocked. They were built with a failsafe the Order never understood, human programming oversight. You used our engineers to design your security. We simply reminded the system who its creators were. Mason smirked. Turns out you can't contain the species that wrote your firewall. Across the stars, the transformation unfolded. Worlds that once housed Order garrisons now shimmered with human broadcasts, short, calm messages declaring peaceful transition of authority. No bloodshed, no bombardment, only silence and compliance. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Order had no one left to command. Xath's crystalline body dimmed as he stared at the displays. You will destabilize everything, he whispered. Reyes turned toward him. No, Arbiter. We'll stabilize it properly this time. You think yourselves saviors? She shook her head. Caretakers. Saviors demand worship. We just expect results. Mason leaned in, voice low. Fleet reports say some of their captains are trying to rally a counterattack. Reyes didn't look away from the window. Let them try. Moments later, outside the Citadel, streaks of light carved through space, rogue order ships breaking formation. Human vessels moved instantly, no hesitation, no wasted motion. The exchange lasted 12 seconds. Then, only debris drifted across the void. "See," Reyes murmured. "Practice makes efficient." Mason exhaled. "You realize they're going to call us monsters after this?" "They already did," she said. "Now they'll just be accurate." The Solkin philosopher floated to the center of the room, its voice softer now, almost reverent. "When we invited your kind into the stars, we thought you fragile. You smiled too often, laughed too easily. We mistook calm for weakness." Reyes nodded. "That's a common mistake. The quietest storm still floods the valley." "What are you truly after?" the philosopher asked. Reyes looked at the dying red dwarf beyond the viewport. "Order. Just not yours." Hours passed. The Citadel's lights dimmed to a deep amber. In every corner, alien delegates debated surrender terms, fear thick in the air. Human officers moved through the corridors, polite, efficient, unarmed. Their presence felt less like occupation and more like inevitability. Mason joined Reyes on the balcony overlooking the central atrium. The red light of the dwarf star washed their faces. "They'll rebuild under our oversight," he said. "Trade, policy, defense, all run through us." "That's not control," she said. "That's insurance." "You really think they'll ever trust us again?" Reyes took a slow sip of coffee. "Trust is overrated. Predictability works better." Below, Xath called for the final hearing. His body no longer glowed, it flickered like a dying lantern. "You have destroyed centuries of unity," he said. "For what?" "Power." "Understanding," Reyes replied. "Unity built on fear isn't peace. It's sedation. You made every species docile. You outlawed risk, curiosity, emotion. You tried to turn the galaxy into a waiting room. And you think rage will fix that?" "No," she said quietly. "But it will wake them up." Xath studied her, glass facets dulling. "You've become what you feared." Reyes smiled. "We've always been what we feared. We just learned to steer it." At her signal, the projection screens across the chamber changed again. Every planet under the Order's domain appeared in sequence, each broadcasting the same symbol, a white circle enclosing a flame. Humanity's emblem of containment achieved. A soft voice over the feed announced, "The Human Coalition extends governance under the Interstellar Accord. All citizens will retain autonomy under new supervision. The Order is dissolved." The message was clinical, unthreatening, terrifying in its composure. The Viareth commander whispered, "You replaced our empire overnight." Mason shrugged. "We had practice doing that too. Ask Britain." Reyes gave him a look. "Not now, Lieutenant." Moments later, Admiral Voss' voice echoed through the chamber. "Transition complete. Fleet standing by for final confirmation." Reyes turned toward Xath. "There's your reckoning, Arbiter." Humanity's rage wasn't unleashed. It was harnessed. The Arbiter bowed his head. "Then this is the end of the Order." Reyes shook her head. "No. It's evolution. You just weren't ready to evolve." When the Council dismissed, Reyes remained behind, staring out at the drifting wreckage of the rogue fleet. The Citadel's reflection shimmered across her glass of coffee, dark, steady, bottomless. Mason joined her again, quiet for once. "So, we won." She smiled faintly. "Winning's temporary. Understanding lasts longer." He glanced at her. "And if they rise against us someday?" She looked up at the stars. "Then we'll teach them again. The lesson never changes. Only the students do." They stood in silence, the hum of distant ships like a heartbeat against the void. Hours later, as the Citadel rotated into the red dwarf's fading light, Reyes recorded her final transmission. "To all worlds receiving this signal, humanity extends its hand, not its fist. But understand, our patience is not surrender. Our calm is not weakness. We endured containment to study its design. And now, we've removed the locks. She paused, eyes steady. The Order witnessed our rage once. What they missed was its discipline. Rage without aim is chaos. Rage with purpose is civilization. The message ended. Silence followed. A silence so complete it felt earned. Reyes set down the recorder and turned to Mason. We'll rebuild differently. Fewer councils, more cooperation. Transparency, even if they hate it. He grinned. So, same madness, better branding? Exactly, she said. He raised his cup. To the new order. Reyes lifted hers. To humanity's version of peace.